Chapter 5: Kingdoms, Kings and Early Republics. In the last 50 years, people have started choosing their ruler by voting. But do you know about 3000 years ago men became Rajas by performing big sacrifices? Rituals. Many powerful kings performed the Ashwamedha Yajna or the horse sacrifice ceremony. In this sacrifice or yajna, at first the king who was to perform the sacrifice set a horse free to wander through different kingdoms. The horse was accompanied by a group of king's men. If a king allowed the horse to pass through his kingdom without stopping it, it indicated that he had accepted the superiority of the king who was to perform the sacrifice. But if a king stopped the horse, it meant that he was challenging the authority of the king who sent the horse. As a result, a battle followed such a challenge. At the end of the whole process, there was a grand ceremony. All the Rajas who accepted the supremacy of the king performing the sacrifice were then invited to the sacrifice or yajna. Janpadas and Mahajanapdas. When man started to lead a domesticated life, his life revolved around the tribe. There was a big change that occurred during this time. Iron began to be used on a much larger scale. Eventually, the thick forests of the Ganga plains were cleared with the iron tools. Earlier, these forests posed as an hindrance to the expansion in this region. Gradually, bigger settlements developed in the Ganga plains. The small tribes of the earlier period gave way to large kingdoms. These regions came to be called Janpadas. The larger and more powerful Janpadas were called Mahajanapdas. In these Janpadas, such as Purana Kila in Delhi, Hastanpura near Meerut and Apranjikhera near Etah, the last two are in Uttar Pradesh. It has been found that people lived in huts and kept cattle as well as other animals. A variety of crops such as rice, wheat, barley, pulses, sugarcane, sesame and mustard were used by the people in the Janpadas. Towns. Villages that grew in size became towns. Towns also grew around centers of trade and craft. Sometimes, artisans and craftsmen came together to work as a group. These places developed into towns. Ujjaini, Vaishali, Ayodhya, Kaushambi, Tamralipti and Champa were some important towns of this period. Taxation. Large armies required more money, therefore kings began to collect taxes on a regular basis. They appointed officers to collect taxes from the people. Most people were farmers, so agriculture was the main source of revenue. The farmers gave 1/6 of their produce to the king. This was called bhaga or share of the produce. During this time, the farmers began to produce more from their land. This was because of two factors. First, the iron plough came to be used on a larger scale. It was an improvement over the wooden plough. Second, the practice of transplanting paddy, that is, growing saplings separately and then planting them in the fields, became common. This ensured that many more plants survived and hence more grains were produced. Increased production meant that the king got a greater share of the revenue. Trade. Trade got a boost during this period due to the introduction of money. Until this time, trade had been carried through barter. Now, coins of silver and copper, punch-marked coins, began to be used. This led to an increase in trade. Inland trade was brisk, goods were sent far and wide. Bimbisara, the king of Magad, built roads and bridges throughout his empire. This encouraged trade. Besides land routes, trade was carried out through sea routes. The main articles traded were silk, muslin, perfumes, and ivory. Society. The people were grouped into varnas. There were 4 varnas: Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras. These varnas were decided on the basis of birth. This means that if a person was born in a Brahman family, that person would automatically become a Brahman. People of different varnas performed different tasks. The Brahmins were expected to teach the Vedas and perform religious rituals and sacrifices. Kshatriyas were warriors and fought wars. The Vaishyas were involved in trade and agriculture. Only the first three varnas could study the Vedas and perform sacrifices. The Shudras had to serve the other three groups. In addition, there was another group of people, the untouchables, who were even lower in social rank than the Shudras. Magad. Magad was a monarchy ruled by a king. During this period, it was the most powerful Mahajanpada. This was due to many factors. Magad was located in the Gangetic basin, where the soil was very fertile and yielded good harvests. Land tax was high and it provided a large income for the kingdom. This enabled the kings to maintain a large army. The forests provided Magad with timber and elephants. Timber was used to build houses, forts and chariots. Elephants were used in arming. Magad had large deposits of iron ore. Iron was used to make agricultural implements and the weapons of war.